Hi guys, this is Hirosaki. This story is all about what if Naruto was in Star Wars. Revan and Naruto, immortal beings, return to the Republic as it heads towards war once again. What events will these two alter? Before we start, kindly like and subscribe to this channel, and look over the description box for the author of this amazing storyline. Welcome aboard. Chapter 7. Naruto looked around the freighter the council had booked them passage on. He looked at Revan, who sighed from her seat. I hate not having my own ship. She pouted and griped. Well, the one we came in was in no shape to fly anymore. Naruto said, patting her hand. Don't placate me, dear, she said. Naruto looked at Obi-Wan and Kagan, both were meditating. Why don't you do that? He asked his wife. Because I want to be tense. Tense keeps me alive, and since we're going to Nar Shada, I want to be coiled and ready to strike. Naruto chuckled. You sound like Anko. Both smiled, remembering the snake mistress. The three of them became very close after Naruto's return, and Revan and Anko could be seen making many men jealous with their antics. When Anko had been murdered by Sasuke and Orochimaru, the two had mourned, buried her, and went on spree of destruction that sent Otonins running at the mere mention of their names. Rev, Naruto said softly. She looked into his eyes. When we decide on children. He whispered low so as not to draw the attention of the Jedi as they meditated, I want our first girl to be named Anko. Revan smiled and squeezed his hand. Me too. Then with a smile she asked. What about a son? Naruto smiled. Whatever you wish is fine with me. I have a few male role models, but none of them whose name I want to hear my wife yelling out in anger. Revan smiled. Just because most your male role models are perverts. Sheikah? Nah, the lazy bastard would be a curse to the kid. Zal. Revan said after a bit. Zal? Naruto asked, and she watched his mind try to fit the name with those of people Revan told him about. After the Wookiee? And what's wrong with that? Revan asked. Nothing, dear. I thought you would have gone with that pilot you told me about, or that old coot. You leave my old coot alone. You had some of your own, and Ero-san was the youngest. Naruto smiled at that. Aji-san was the best. Bah-chan too. Ero-san was like that annoying uncle you liked, but didn't want to tell others about. Revan nodded at that. You thinking of children, love? She asked. Naruto shrugged. Watched the younglings with Master Yoda this morning while you were packing, and Ino and Choji's, or Lee's boy. Revan sighed. I can't believe Sakura did that. She married him, gave him a son, then ran off to join the Uchiha only to be killed by him. Gon's got his mother's hair, and thankfully not his father's eyebrows. Revan shuddered, remembering the first time she saw Lee and Guy training. Gon's going to be a powerhouse. He's like a blend of you and Lee. Revan said, remembering the little boy who declared her husband was his eternal rival, and tried to beat him with a series of taijutsu moves he'd seen his father perform once. Naruto smiled and kissed her temple. He and Konohamaru will do fine leading Konoha. Sai, KO's the 7th Hokage. Revan looked at him. Are you okay with how we left? I'm really fine, Rev, Naruto said with another kiss to her temple. We were looking like we did when I was 20, while everyone was old and dying. It wasn't fair to them. He pulled out the necklace she gave him when they started dating. Thumbing the activation switch, the hollow image of the group photo came to life, showing the people precious to Naruto gathered around him on his 20th birthday, before life altered and any of them had died on missions and/or assassinations. I have this, and I will always miss them, but you are my life and my soul. Revan kissed him, and they heard a clearing of a throat to see Kagan sitting there. Not in front of Obi-Wan, please. They turned to see the Padawan passed out with a dribble of blood. Revan realized why as she felt her husband's hand on her breast and realized she had straddled him sometime during their short make-out session. "Sorry," she said with an unrepentant grin. Kagan chuckled. "I do understand, it's the younger years have grown up in the temple and have been sheltered. Even with all the traveling I've done with him since he was 13, he's been rather sheltered to some things." Naruto grinned. "Really?" Revan groaned and just knew poor Obi-Wan was going to get raised like no Jedi before. She poked her husband on his nose. "I better not see that jutsu." Naruto grinned and nodded his head. "I promise Revheim, you won't see my first jutsu ever created." Revan shuddered and wondered if warning Obi-Wan ahead of time would help the boy. "What jutsu?" Kagan asked, rising from his position and taking a seat across from them after casting a look at his Padawan and seeing him beginning to recover. "My husband when he was 11 years old and fresh out of the academy was experimenting with a high-level forbidden technique when he messed up a hand sign and used a henge to turn into what translates into a centerfold. A very attractive woman with wisps of smoke covering certain key body parts, then he looks cutely at the male and giggles." Qui-Gon's eyes had become glassy, and Revan slapped her hand to face and dragged it down. "Damn it. Jedi celibacy." She muttered and flicked her husband. "I forbid that technique in the temple." Naruto snickered. "I want you to solemnly swear Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze," she said. Naruto looked her right in the eye. "I solemnly swear that I won't use it at the temple when you're around." He finished and Revan felt a shudder run up her spine. Jedi Temple Council Chamber. 7 masters were gathered when they felt something that caused them all to shiver. "I felt a terrible disturbance in the Force," Mace Windu said. Kai Mundi who nodded. Yoda sat there and he knew what the disturbance was. He could feel it in his ears that Revan's husband was going to turn the temple on its side. Take younglings on training trip perhaps, safe it would be, safer than to be here when Namikaze Naruto returns. The venerable Jedi Grand Master thought, not bothering to warn his fellow masters of what he'd learned from Revan's holocron about her time in Konoha, or about Naruto. Force has a sense of humor, it does. Chuckling to himself, Yoda didn't see the looks from the other masters who were wondering what the oldest amongst them, besides Naruto and Revan, was laughing to himself about. Nar Shada. The 3 Jedi and 1 ninja left the spaceport. Naruto wrinkled his nose and looked at his wife. "It stinks." She nodded and knew for him with his heightened senses the smuggler's moon had to be as bad as the sewers of some of the larger towns they'd traveled to before his time as Hokage. "Breath in through your mouth and out your nose, and for Kami's sake don't talk to anyone. Most the inhabitants will stab you in the back to rob your corpse." Naruto growled at a man in rags who was inching close to them. "Why aren't the Jedi doing something about this?" he asked. Revan sighed. "Nar Shada has been like this even 4,000 years ago. You can't force change on those who don't like the status quo," Revan said as she and Naruto followed Kagan and Obi-Wan. "So, see anything similar?" Naruto asked his wife, his hand staying near the kunai holster on his waist, while his other hand he kept free to summon his lightsaber in a moment's notice. "Well, a lot of the buildings have been replaced over time, but south of here is the refugee sector. There's the docks, the Jek-Jek-Tar, an alien bar that you best avoid as it's filled with gases that will eat your lungs without a spacesuit." Naruto nodded. "To the north we have several ship mechanics on various levels, bar, Pazak dens, swoop." She paused. "Kagan?" "Yes?" the other master said looking over his shoulder as he'd been talking with Obi-Wan. "Do they still have swoop racing?" she asked. "It's been replaced by pod racing. They use powerful turbine engines to pull a pod now," he answered. "They hold them all over. I saw one near the outer rim not too long ago." Revan sighed. "I liked swoop racing. Perhaps I can get a swoop bike and take you out on it." she said to Naruto as they passed several buildings. Bounty Hunters Guild. Revan said with distaste. More often than not they have been paid to hunt and kill Jedi due to some crime boss with an ego and too many credits. Naruto looked around and pointed, "What's that?" Revan looked and scowled. "Something you'll avoid if you want to keep a happy marriage," she growled. Naruto blinked. "Where did Jiraiya want to take you for research and leave me in the hotel room?" Revan prompted her husband. She knew he wasn't dumb, but he usually blocked useless memories that would need prompting to renew. His eyes widened and he shook his head. "I love my wife, and will never need a place like that," Naruto said, but then it was ruined with his grin as he leaned in and whispered to her, "But maybe I can send Ben in there." Revan groaned. "No," she hissed. "You will not corrupt such a youngling. He's got to be nearly 20, love," Naruto said. He looked ahead and saw the Jedi were entering what he assumed was a cantina from the signs. "I think we fell behind." Revan looked and nodded. "Our contact is to meet us in there." "Now, you have the credits I gave you?" she asked and Naruto nodded. "I swear, she does this every time we go somewhere. Like I'm a little kid. I tell you, forget something one time, and they never let you forget." The blonde thought, but kept his mental link closed, knowing from past experience that if she heard that he would have a lot of groveling to do. "And remember, you and Obi-Wan are to watch out for one another." Sigh, "Yes dear," Naruto said as she adjusted the poncho he wore as he refused to wear Jedi robes. "And remember, many beings use blasters and won't hesitate to shoot to kill for the stupidest mistakes." Revan continued as Obi-Wan came back out and headed towards them. "Gee, can I go out and play now, Mother Hen?" Naruto asked his wife. "I'll be fine, Rev, I was Hokage after all, and I am quite capable of protecting myself." Revan ignored him as she looked at Obi-Wan. "You have your comm link?" she asked the Padawan who nodded. Revan kissed Naruto on the cheek. "Have fun, boys, see you both in 2 hours," she said and walked away. Naruto shook his head. "Ben, if you ever get married or get into a relationship, remember they are always right and agree to everything they say until they are out of sight, then do what you were planning to do anyways," Naruto said, throwing an arm around the younger man's shoulder. Now, Revan mentioned once there were places to pick a fight in an arena. Any idea where they would be? Kagan and Revan watched their contact leave. "That was a waste of time," Revan said with a hint of disgust. The other master sighed and nodded in agreement. "All we learned is that someone is planning something vague near the Outer Rim." Revan snorted. "The Outer Rim is always a hotbed for galactic events. Glad to see something haven't changed." Kagan sipped his mineral water. "I wonder what Obi-Wan and your husband have gotten up to." Revan shrugged. "Love? What you doing?" Nothing came back. Revan tried several more times and she felt something across the bond. She hadn't felt that since. Her eyes snapped open. "I'm going to kill him," she growled, rising and was heading for the door with Kagan several steps behind. She stopped as her eyes focused on the wall screen. "Oh my," Kagan said, seeing footage from the duel arena, where a new fighter was taking on 3 of the top-ranked fighters at once and winning. "He is so sleeping on the couch for the rest of the week." Revan growled. "Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, you are in so much trouble, and don't shut me out. I know you can hear me." On the screen she saw the blonde fighter wince, and then take down a Trandoshan with a spinning back brain kick. "He's well skilled in the arts of unarmed combat," Kagan said. "And considering the Trandoshan, the Gamorrean and the Rodian are armed with blades and blasters, if they don't kill him I will," Revan said and stalked out of the bar. She used her bond to find him. Kagan followed. "Interesting, Master Yoda is right, there will be much to learn from them, and for Naruto to get my Padawan to do something like this, I like him already." the master thought as he followed the living legend down several levels. Chapter 8. Oh, hell yeah! Naruto yelled as he won his third fight against something Ben had called a Twi'lek. Naruto thought the tails on the head and the way it looked made it look like it had a butt head. Naruto spun the staff he'd chosen around. He'd watched a few fights and while disappointed about the suppression field, he thought it would have been something cool to use back in Konoha between him and Lee in the younger days when the taijutsu specialist was burning brightly with the flames of youth which always left a bruised Naruto wondering what mountain had fallen on him. Can we go now? Ben asked as Naruto returned to his spot and guzzled water. Go? Why, we're winning. Naruto said in protest. He hadn't used any of his jutsus, and he'd barely been pushed with taijutsu. We can clean up here, he said. Obi-Wan sighed, but he did have to agree with his new friend. He'd placed a few bets on him after some encouragement from Naruto, who swore that if he lost he'd pay him back double. Thus far Obi-Wan was holding nearly 80,000 credits in 3 fights. Naruto crushed one of the best duelists in his first fight. Everyone bet on the other guy and Naruto waltzed over him as if he was a youngling, and he hasn't used the force or those abilities he showed back at the temple. Just be careful. Many of the beings here don't like to lose, he cautioned the blonde who answered with a grin. But Ben, that just makes it more fun. Obi-Wan sighed. How can a man that's older than Master Kagan and I combined act like an undisciplined youngling 1 minute, but on the battlefield he's like Master Yoda? Oh, hey. There are 3 of them, Naruto said watching a Gamorrean, a Trandoshan and a Rodian entered the duel ring. Be careful. This doesn't feel right, Obi-Wan cautioned. Naruto nodded as he felt the suppressor shut down, and he looked to where the controller was and the being that Obi-Wan called a Quarren was missing. Suppressors down, Naruto said, and Obi-Wan felt the shields rise around the arena, meaning there was no escape. What should I do? Obi-Wan asked. Naruto spared him a look and grinned. Bet large on me kicking their asses. And with that he was moving. Naruto ducked several blaster shots from the Rodian when he felt Revan's presence against his mental shields. He used the staff to knock out the Rodian and thus eliminated the blasters. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, you are in so much trouble, and don't shut me out. I know you can hear me. He couldn't contain the wince as he drilled the Trandoshan with a spinning back brain kick he learned from Lee after watching wrestling one night while the girls were out. Fuck me, it actually works, he thought with surprise as he rolled and scooped up the dropped vibro sword. Last thing I'm going to do is draw my lightsaber if I don't have to, he thought as he avoided the slow axe swipes from the pig man. Ugh, he's fatter than Jirobe. Smells just as bad too. Naruto thought of the former member of the Sound 5. Naruto saw that the Trandosan was back up and picked up its other blade. Better end this before Rev gets here. I know I said I wouldn't do this, but I needed to stretch somehow. The former Hokage sighed as he ducked under the axe swipe and with a slash gutted the Gamorrean. The blade continued and blocked the overhand strike from the Trandoshan. Naruto got to his feet with ease while pushing the lizard being back as he did so. You 3 came in here to kill me, why? Naruto demanded as he attacked. Several bloody gashes littered the Trandoshan's arms. Paid to. You were winning too many fights. Nothing personal, Naruto growled. Oh, no, not at all, he said, holding his left hand behind his back and built up a low-level Rasengan. Took me forever to get it down to one hand without the clones, while Revan kept distracting me wearing that sexy lingerie and nibbling on me all the time. Naruto smiled. My wife is a pervert, and I like it. Nothing personal, but I hear my wife coming, Naruto said as he felt the force wave that was his wife shoving through the crowd. So, game over. He used the blade to block the Trandoshan's blade up, and then with his left he rammed the Rasengan into the creature's chest and sent it flying. The poor alien being hit the force field and with nowhere to go, the Rasengan drilled into him with no mercy. Naruto turned to see Obi-Wan collecting his winnings, and turn and walk into the glare of Revan, who was followed by a semi-smirking Kagan. As the field came down, Naruto winced as his wife's eyes spun towards him as she felt his mirth. Ah crap, I'm in trouble. He dropped the blade he'd picked up and took several steps back. Now, Rev, sweetie. Don't you sweetie me. You said you wouldn't enter duels like this anymore after that time in IWA. Naruto winced. But there was no danger here, he said, and winced as she levitated a blaster. This was set to kill you, Baka. Kill. Naruto winced as her voice got louder. He could hear bets taking place around the arena. Yep, she's going to kill me. Snort, I won't kill you, love, but I am going to put you in Jedi boot camp. You are reckless, Revan's voice said. Ah, come on, Reverend, you and I both know I am too. Ah crap. Yes, undisciplined. I still can't believe you bluffed your way through council meetings as Hokage. Naruto smiled. Liberal use of Kage Bunshin and the fact that Shizune was a great help as a secretary and Moegi who trained with her was the same. Revan shook her head as she grabbed him by the ear and dragged him towards the exit. Several cat calls and applause from some of the females in the crowd had Revan fighting hard not to laugh. So, what? Naruto asked as they exited the lower-level arena. Did you have fun? She asked as Kagan and Obi-Wan joined them. A blast, Naruto said with a grin. So, how much did we take? He looked at Obi-Wan. The Padawan looked at his master, who crossed his arms and was smirking. 230,000 credits. Which you will not be keeping. Revan and Kagan said at the same time. I told you to keep out of trouble. Revan saw her husband's mulish nature rising. And as Jedi, we live a life of poverty, Kagan said, reminding his apprentice. Ah, come on, Naruto said, looking at his wife, who shook her head. Oh no, you don't, Naruto Uzumaki. You gave me your word. Naruto sighed. You said there are refugees? He asked. Come on, Revan said, taking his arm. The Jedi followed the pair. Now this brings back memories, Revan said as they looked over the various crates that were homes to many of those in the sector. Naruto saw the state of men, women and children of numerous species. She saw the sadness in his eyes. In 4,000 years this is still the same, Revan said. Kagan was speaking to the leader of the refugees. It is? Obi-Wan asked from next to the pair. Yeah. Smells the same. The crates might be a bit newer, and some species I don't recognize, but it's the same. Naruto stood behind her and wrapped his arm around her waist. And you say the Republic has done nothing about this? It's in hut space, Revan said. They don't allow the Republic into their space without a lot of protest, and it's not costly to seek out trouble, so they let the Outer Rim worlds fall apart without putting in effort. Obi-Wan wanted to argue, but while the Mid-Rim and Core worlds thrived, the Outer Rim worlds were ignored. So what? He stopped, seeing Revan have a faraway look on her face. Is she okay? Naruto stepped around her and looked into her eyes. Rev? She blinked. Obi-Wan, stay with Kagan. She took Naruto's hand. We need to find someone. Who? The Padawan asked. An old friend, Revan said, and tugged her husband after her. We'll meet you back at the dock cantina. Rev, what? Naruto asked as she dragged him away, leaving a curious Padawan wondering what just happened. They passed the Jek-Jek-Tar, and Naruto wondered where his beautiful and determined wife was taking them. She stopped by a panel. He's here. I can't believe it, she muttered. Who? Naruto asked. Revan didn't answer, but pulled out a pair of suits. Put this on. Revan, where are we going? He asked, accepting the breathing suit. Into the Jek-Jek-Tar. If I'm right, we need to get to the back rooms and the private chambers below. I should have thought of it. She would have left him someplace secure. But why here? The Jedi Master muttered as she dressed in the breathing suit. Naruto saw she was determined as the day they rescued Konohamaru from the Mist Village after he'd been kidnapped during his Chunin test. Naruto listened to her and adjusted the suit like she told him, and then they entered the Jektar. Chapter 9. What a wonderful smell you've discovered, Naruto remarked after they got below the alien cantina and into the tunnels, well away from the noxious gas. The tunnels were a maze of doors and fans. Revan was leading. She seemed to know where she was going. Naruto figured it was a connection to someone she knew. He held a kunai in his hand after they'd encountered a group of calf hounds as Revan identified them. They might have escaped a transport or were let loose down here, Revan said as they continued on. With his comment about the smell of the tunnels, Revan shot him a look. It smells better than that died you took me to near the lake country when we entered that den and found hundreds of dead oh dear, she said, and they stopped outside a door. What? Naruto asked. This is going to take a while to cut through. There are no controls out here. Naruto nodded, and with a poof his lightsaber appeared in his hand and Revan's in hers. I love storage tattoos, she said, and the blades activated with a snap hiss, and the couple plunged their blades into the sealed door. You take me to such nice places, Naruto said. You're just mad 'cause I'm making you give up the money from your fight. Actually, I'm not. But I don't think Ben should be punished. I did drag him there, and he didn't fight. I'll speak to his master, Revan said as they slowly cut seals on the door. Naruto, she said, getting his attention as he continued to push the blade. What? I'm sorry about taking you away from your home. Everyone you knew. It's okay. You did the best you could. Besides, I think Ino was sick of seeing my bronze body in the peak of physical condition running around Konoha every morning while she looked old and... She didn't have wrinkles, dear, Revan said, defending her blonde friend. She was getting silver in her hair. Yeah, well, it was rough seeing them all age while I stayed looking 20-something, Naruto said. Naruto, Revan said. What? It took us a couple years as the ship's hyperdrive kept giving out. What took years? Naruto inquired. To get from Konoha to Coruscant, Revan said, and watched as Naruto froze, then sighed. I figured that, he said. He formed a familiar cross seal and two shadow clones appeared. Keep cutting, he said, handing them his and Revan's blades as he pulled his wife aside. I'm not mad or upset at you, he said, putting a hand on each of her shoulders. I can feel it through the bond. You thought I would be mad, didn't you? Yes, Revan said. It's just, I took you away from the only world you've ever known and thrown you into a galaxy with species that are beyond description. I mean, I know I'm your wife, but... No buts, Naruto said, taking her chin and making her look at him. Never doubt us. No matter what. You are my precious person, my reason to make myself better, the first thing I think about waking, the last thing I think about before I sleep. You are my heart and soul, Revan Namakase, he said. If you want to stay with the Jedi and teach a couple generations, that's fine with me. If you want to move from planet to planet, that's fine. If you want to set up a diner and be a sexy waitress, I can live with that. It doesn't matter where we are or what we do, as long as you are there, I will adapt to any situation. He kissed her as behind them a pair of shadow clones continued to work. One looked at the other and grinned. Boss is gonna score tonight. Stow it, stupid, and keep cutting. The other one grunted, trying to ignore the kissing couple behind it. Done, the clone said as they returned the lightsabers, then vanished, being dispelled. Rev, if you would? Naruto motioned towards the cutout door. Work, work, work. I swear, men wouldn't be able to do anything without a woman around. She said with a grin and with a force push sent the door flying inwards. Knock, knock. Avon calling. Naruto said stepping through and stopping. Revan watched as he sniffed the air. It's stale, sour. I don't think anyone's been here for a long time. Naruto reported. Does it smell like my ship did when we went to work on it? Revan asked and Naruto nodded. 1,000 years at least. She muttered a deactivated lightsaber in her hand. This way. She pointed towards the left corridor, and they walked, Revan scanning for traps with the Force and Naruto using his enhanced senses for the same task. A lot of beings died here. Naruto said. Revan nodded. A friend of mine was here upon her return. She had to fight a major crime boss who was trying to collect a bounty on her head. The exile? Naruto asked. Revan snorted. She hated that name. Jaina was an exile, but he returned. I looked up her files, she was still called exile after her return, and she was a master on the Reformed Council. Revan shook her head. Jaina Kale, right? Naruto asked. Yeah. She was a friend from my time before the council erased my memories, then after she returned. Naruto paused. What is it? What is that? Naruto asked pointing through a glass window to an arena below. Below. A rancor. Revan said. Old one at that. She said seeing the age lines on a phone. Someone put that here to guard whatever is behind those doors behind it. How is it fed? I mean, look at all the bones. Naruto asked. Look above. A trapdoor, bet it leads to the Jektar, and they toss bodies down here after a fight to dispose of evidence. They don't even know what's here. Naruto shuddered. It's probably spent long periods hibernating. Revan continued looking down into the arena. Well, I guess. We'll have to either sneak past it or kill it. Revan said. Kill it? I need what's in that room. Revan said looking at her husband, and he sighed at her resolved face, and knew he was in for a long night on the couch if he didn't agree. Fine. How? Revan sighed. I don't have any grenades, so this will have to be the hard way, I'm afraid. We'll fight it like we did that troll from IWA. Naruto groaned. That thing hit hard. He looked at the beast below. Well, at least the rancor is better looking. They are about the same size. He thought. I get first crack? He asked and Revan sighed. Don't come crying to me when he leaves you a smear on the ground. Naruto smiled and kissed her quickly. I won't. You're the best wife ever. Revan laughed as he skipped to the entrance and palmed the hatch release. She watched as the doors rumbled open and screeched from long inactivity. The rancor was awakened by that and Revan stayed in the shadows, ready to aid her husband with the use of the Force should he need it. Meanwhile. I'm sorry, Master. Obi-Wan said sitting across from his master. It's all right, Obi-Wan. I always wanted you to rebel somehow. It seems your friendship with Naruto will be good for you in the long run. The elder Jedi said with a smile sipping his tea. Master? Before you would never have tried to even visit a place like the duel arena. I want you to know that things aren't like they seem on the surface, but I'm afraid I've been remised in teaching you of the seedier places as our duties have kept us in certain circles, and while many of them are dangerous and somewhat seedy, the places I'm sure Naruto will take you will show you the real face of the galaxy, not the political sugar-coated version most Jedi only see. Obi-Wan was silent. He's not what I expected, Master. Kagan smiled. I find it fitting. He sipped his tea. When I was younger, before Dooku took me as his Padawan, I did a study on Jedi Knights who fell to the dark side. The history I learned about Revan fascinated me and frightened me. A Jedi with such promise, such a prodigy fell to the dark side. Her redemption was documented by several Jedi. Bastila Shan, Jolie Bindo, Master Vandar and others. They spoke of the mind wipe, the journey to find the Star Forge and stop Revan's former apprentice, Malak. Obi-Wan listened as his master spoke. The tale from start to finish. And then she left. She is the last of her kind in all the galaxy. Naruto Namikaze is immortal, how we don't know fully. I think the answer are in the holocron she handed to Master Yoda. We could ask him. Obi-Wan asked. Naruto doesn't seem to mind answering questions or speaking about his past. It is something we really don't need to know. Kagan answered. His connection to the Force is amazing. The abilities he uses with that strange personal energy called chakra is equal to many things we can do with the Force. You mean like walking on walls? Kagan smiled. Many of his abilities are new, and some are frightening. I know the talk of the temple was heated. Obi-Wan shook his head. Master Tuk and Master Guile both say he's a Sith Lord, and Revan's return will doom us all. Don't listen to that. You can look at both the Namikaze and see they shine so strongly in the light side of the Force. There is no trace of malice in either of them. Kagan said. Obi-Wan nodded at that. While meditating on the trip, he'd seen them both in the Force. They shone brighter than the gas giant of the Yavin system. Master, what do you think they went to find? Obi-Wan asked. Something from Revan's past. Kagan said. Revan looked at the remains of the rancor and sighed. You enjoyed that. Naruto smiled. What? It roared, I just wanted it to know it wasn't the biggest thing around with teeth. You shouldn't have summoned her. Stop. She does that to piss you off. Naruto said to his wife as he hopped off the remains of the rancor. I don't like her. Naruto wrapped his arms around his wife's midsection. I won't summon her again unless I really need to, promise. He finished nuzzling her neck from behind. Revan sighed. Not here. Now, let's see what keeps pinging my Force senses like that. The pair approached the door and Revan sent a Force push out, triggering the door release. I'll be damned. She said once the lights flickered on. Sitting there was a very battered, broken and rusted droid she thought she'd never see. Taking a step closer she stopped as a holocron on the floor sprang to life. Bastila. Revan breathed seeing the woman who shared a bond with her. Hello Revan. Bastila Shan, Jedi Master said, the silver in the hair and crow's feet around the eyes showed her age. Chapter 10. You look like hell Bas. Revan said to the image of her sister Jedi, dead all these millennia. The holocron image shifted. And you look the same as you did when you left. No, you're happy, content, whole. Revan studied the image of the woman she shared a bond with. You made Master. Hope you didn't bore your Padawans with rules and more rules. The holocron image laughed. Actually, I used you and Jaina as my idols. Revan missed the woman who she considered her sister. And who is this? This? The holocron asked. My husband. Bastila, meet Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Greetings Naruto. Hi. The blonde scratched the back of his head. The holocrons always unnerved him ever since he saw Revan's all those years ago. It has been a long time since my image has been called forth. Bastila said. There are messages recorded in here for you Revan. Listen to them at your leisure. Why were you put here Bastila? Revan asked. Jaina's idea. She thought you'd come to Nar Shaddaa sometime. HK-47 was deactivated after a brutal battle. None were able to fix him properly. Many didn't want to since he started to refuse even Jaina's orders. Revan looked at the droid. I built him so long ago. How long has passed? Bastila asked. Over 4,000 years. Revan said. Then I'm afraid the Ebon Hawk is probably no more. Canderous, sorry, Mandalore stored it on Zun, but time on that moon will have ravaged it, I'm afraid. Revan nodded. Now, collect this holocron, and your droid. We shall speak more when you wish. Thank you, BAS. Revan said. Missed you, brat. Bastila said as the holocron shut down. Naruto picked it up while Revan went to the droid. Well? He asked, seeing her looking at it. The frame was ruined, even he could see that. I can salvage his memory core and personality unit, but the body is beyond repair. Naruto watched as Revan pulled several tools from the kunai pouch she wore on her thigh. While Naruto carried weapons, his wife carried tools. He watched as she worked on scavenging parts, and then separated the head from the droid's body. I'm amazed his head's intact. Revan said, cradling it under her arm as she walked back to her husband. And you got upset when I carried Pain's head under my arm. Naruto muttered. Excuse me? Revan asked. Nothing, dear. Naruto said as he followed his wife. The difference, husband of mine, is that Pain's head was a bloody mess by the time you were done, and when we got back to Konoha all the fluids had drained out, and it was just smelling bad. She held up the droid's head. HK's head is intact, not leaking fluids, and when I get a chance, I'll activate it and see what I can do about building him a new body. HK, wait, that crazy assassin droid you always talked about. That HK? Revan smiled. Yes, that HK. He calls me meatbag, I'll punt his head from here to Konoha. Revan smiled. I'll see what I can do, but no promises, as it seemed to be programmed into every system and subsystem he had. The pair made their way back out. Naruto looked at the rancor a moment. Wonder what it would be like unleashing a few of these upon Odo. He muttered. No. Revan said from next to him. But dear. No, Naruto. We are not transplanting creatures from my known galaxy upon your world. Think about it. If another person like Orochimaru or Sasuke got to power and had them. Naruto sighed. You're right. I'm sorry. I know. You just like thinking of ways to protect those you care for. And while they might be gone, their legacy and yours will remain. Naruto smiled, thinking of his image next to Tsunade's on the Hokage monument. So, we collect Ben and Master Jin, then what? Naruto asked as they found an escape passage that would take them back to the surface. Well, we report to the Council of Masters, then you and I are going to work on some of your force skills that I know you've been avoiding. Naruto pouted. But, I like my jutsu better. Revan gave him a look that wives across all the galaxies and dimensions give their husbands when they say something that they feel is stupid. You like the explosions. I swear, you and Anko have to be related. Hey, you leave Anko out of this. Naruto said. Oh no, I'm not. I still have those pictures. Revan said, and Naruto stopped and looked at her in shock. You promised you'd not hold those against me. Revan smiled at her husband. No, I didn't. I said I would think about not using them. But then your drinking buddy let slip that she saw you naked. Naruto groaned. Wasn't my fault. She used a fire jutsu and burned off my clothes. I dived into the water. And she just happened to fall in, right? Revan asked. He didn't see the smile, as he was busy trying to think of a way out of the doghouse for something that happened nearly 30 years ago. And I think I need to be reassured my husband loves me. Revan said. Naruto heard the teasing in her voice and smiled. And how will I do that, my love? Is there any form of barter I can offer? Revan laughed as they took the lift up. She smiled as her husband nibbled her neck below her ear, whispering suggestions of what he could do in trade. Thank the Force, HK's deactivated. I would hate for him to mention anything Naruto's planning on. Oh, that sounds good. She thought as one suggestion had her eyes rolling up into her head while his hands massaged her ribs and teased her breasts while staying over her robes. A grinning Naruto and a flushed Revan rejoined Obi-Wan and Kagan 20 minutes later. "Are you okay?" the Padawan asked, seeing Revan's flushed condition. "Never better," she said, putting the droid head on the table. "What?" "Gentlemen, meet HK-47, a very old friend," Revan said, stealing Qui-Gon's tea and sipping it. "Did the refugees enjoy the donation?" Naruto asked. "Yes, they were most appreciative of such a large amount. It will allow them to buy medical supplies and food and blankets for all." Naruto nodded and Revan could see him thinking. "Are we finished then?" she asked. Kagan nodded. "Just need to get back to the transport, and we can head back any time." Revan looked at the droid head. "I want to visit a couple of stalls before we go. I need to see if I can find parts or a frame for him." Wouldn't you have more luck on Coruscant?" Obi-Wan asked. Revan smiled and shook her head. "Doubt it. Most of his original parts one-hand made. I have a feeling I'll be doing that as well for a new body." Kagan was looking at the droid head. "I don't think I've ever seen a style like this before." "I'm sure you wouldn't," Revan said, leaning against Naruto. "When I made HK, I was just starting down my path as a Sith Lord. He was my bodyguard and, more importantly, he was an assassin droid." Obi-Wan gasped. "And you want to rebuild him, whatever for?" Revan smiled as she patted the deactivated droid head. "He was my friend. And even when I became a Jedi, he stood by me and fought for the Republic." Kagan put a hand on his Padawan's shoulder to stop him from saying something else. "I think we need to get going," Naruto said in a low voice, and the three Jedi looked at him. Revan saw his gaze. "Son of a Hutt," she muttered, seeing the heavily armed trio of Trandoshan coming their way after the bartender pointed at them. "I don't think they like the fact I won so much in the arena," Naruto said, standing up. He looked at the others. "Get to the ship, I'll only be a moment." Revan grabbed the head of her droid and kissed her husband on the lips. "Come on, you two," she said, heading for the back door. "You're just going to leave him against a bar full of thugs?" Obi-Wan asked incredulously as his master pushed him along. Revan snorted. "He won't kill them unless they force him to." "What about them killing him?" Obi-Wan asked as they were moving along the vast catwalks. Revan laughed. "They won't." Behind them several explosions could be heard, and as a door opened they heard a shout of Daibakoha Kagebunshin. Revan winced. "We won't have to pay for damages, right?" Explosions could be heard and the door hissed shut again as the trio continued on. Naruto looked around the smoking remains of the bar and sighed. "I am so not paying for this," he muttered as he picked the pockets of the downed bounty hunters and the patrons that had decided to join in. He got a storage scroll and sealed away weapons and armor that he thought he could sell. The credits he set aside in a pouch. "I can get something for Rev later." He smiled. "And maybe visit Dex and get some ramen." He giggled a bit, thinking he's about to pull one over on his wife. At a vendor's stall near the spaceport, Revan stopped in mid-haggle. "My wife's senses tell me my husband is about to do something stupid and try and pretend it was okay. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, whatever it is, forget it. I am watching you," she sent through their bond. "Ah, Rev, I find your lack of faith disturbing." "It's me." Revan sighed. "I know, that's why I'm telling you now, whatever you have in that ramen-addicted mind of yours, forget it. And you are not going to DEX's diner more than once a week." "Crap." Revan smiled as she went back to haggling over parts with the Toydarian. Chapter 11. Jedi Temple, Coruscant. Revan snuggled against her husband's bare chest. They'd been back at the temple for a week and she'd come across several ideas on how to rebuild HK-47. Most of it came from designs from the Trade Federation. She'd studied their droid designs, and with modifications she would have a new body for her former droid. Naruto's hand trailed up her back and she smiled. "Morning, sleepyhead," she said, kissing his neck. Naruto mumbled. Over the past week he'd been locked away with Master Yoda, and neither said a word of what they were doing in the sealed room. Revan knew that whatever it was, her husband was exhausted each night. She couldn't find any wounds, but that was due to his healing factor. Last night, however, he'd returned to their chambers and proceeded to make love to her till well after the 4th chime. "Are you going to tell me what you and Master Yoda are doing?" she asked. "Maybe later," Naruto said, kissing her forehead. "How's your research coming along?" he asked. "It's fine. I sent an order to a distributor here on Coruscant and should have what I need in a couple of days, and HK up and running a day or two after that." Revan straddled her husband and looked down at him. "You're shielding," she said with a mock pout. "You're snooping," he fired back as his hands grabbed her hips. "I'm your wife, I'm supposed to snoop." Slowly they began to move, teasing one another. She leaned down to capture his lips with a kiss when the door chime sounded. "Ignore it," she said as they were both close. It continued to chime and Revan was getting mad. She stood and was heading for the door as the communicator on the nightstand pinged. "You get that, I'll kill who's at the door," she said. "Rev," Naruto called, and she stopped. "Best put on a robe." She looked down at her nude form and grabbing a robe off the chair she slipped out of the bedroom. Naruto picked up the comlink. "Namikaze, the building best be under attack at this hour or someone's getting a lightsaber enema." A chuckle from the comlink told him who it was. "Master Yoda? Need you and your wife in chambers. Matters to attend to, serious it is. We'll be there," he said and put the comlink down. He could hear Revan telling off someone inside as he pulled on his pants and went to see who was there so early. Obi-Wan Kenobi was not having a good morning. His master had roused him from slumber early and sent him to wake Naruto and Revan. He'd been standing outside the door ringing the chime over and over for 10 minutes. It was when he pounded on the door that it hissed open, and standing there with the robe barely closed was Revan, looking like a vengeful Sith Lord she was pictured as in the archives. "Are her eyes yellow?" Obi-Wan wondered before she reached out and dragged him into the room. "What the frack do you want at this time of morning, Padawan Kenobi?" she hissed. Obi-Wan winced. It was rare that she addressed him thus, and he knew she was not happy. "I was sent by Kagan to." "I don't care if the Supreme Chancellor sent you. Do you know what you interrupted?" He paled as she then went on to tell him, his eyes widening, and he stepped back as she began curing at him in 3 different languages. "I was so close and you nerf herder had to." "Rev." Obi-Wan sighed in relief when he saw his blonde friend coming out of the bedroom. "I'm not finished with you," Revan said, seeing Obi-Wan's look of relief. "Leave him alone, love. Master Yoda wants us and them to report to the main council chamber. Something big has happened." Revan growled and stormed back to the bedroom, and the door hissed shut. Obi-Wan sighed and shared a look with his friend. "Your wife is one scary woman." Naruto chuckled. "Secret, Ben. All women are scary." He entered the kitchenette and got a cup of coffee. "You do know she's going to get you again, right?" Obi-Wan paled. "I would be in your debt if you would save me, my friend." Naruto smirked. "We'll see." He sipped his coffee. "By the way, did they ever get the library sorted out?" Obi-Wan looked at his friend and shook his head. "I thought the archivist was going to have heart failure seeing all the statues painted." Naruto smirked. "I did something similar when I was 12. You all are way too uptight around here." Obi-Wan looked at him. "And hanging master took by his undergarments in the gardens?" Naruto's eyes hardened. He insulted my wife, he's lucky that's all did to him. Next time he becomes my sparring partner. Obi-Wan had sparred with Naruto once they returned from Konoha, his shoulders still ached when he thought about it. Along with his ribs, his hip, his right leg. Put this on. Revan said, coming out and tossing a shirt at Naruto. He slipped it on as she tied her hair back in a loose ponytail. Obi-Wan wisely kept his mouth shut as he followed them out the door. Naruto had no such compulsion as he decided to egg his wife on. Really, Rev, you look like you just rolled out of the bed after a wild night of hot passionate sex. Obi-Wan somehow managed to trip on the perfectly clear corridor. Supreme Chancellor has asked us to investigate the blockade of Naboo. Mace Windu said to the quartet before the council. And what are our actions to be should negotiations fail? Revan asked. Report to us you must. Advise the Chancellor we will upon your findings. Yoda said. Be careful, shrouded this is. Naruto looked at the little master. As careful as a cat in a room full of rocking chairs. Most of the council didn't understand the joke, but Revan's chuckle joined Yoda's. To Naboo you go. You have several days before the transport is ready. Prepare you must. Yoda said. The four bowed. May the Force be with you. It took nearly a week before the transport was ready. Revan loaded HK-47 on board and spent a day locked away putting the droid's new body together. Naruto shuddered seeing the multiple arms, and even more when he opened a crate to reveal the weapons she'd picked up. Rev? He called as she was welding the droid together. What? What kind of weapon is this? He asked. That is a Mandalorian assault rifle. The tube attached underneath is a grenade launcher. She said, pausing to see what he was holding up. And why are there 4 blaster pistols here? Naruto asked. Well, he'll have 4 arms. I've added updated targeting programs to his matrix. So far, the head had remained deactivated. Revan had managed to make a new head casing, and would give the droid a more menacing look. Revan had allowed him to add the Konoha leaf symbol to the outer casing, and she'd added programming for HK to obey Naruto as it would her. I'm surprised you got all this before we left. Naruto admitted. I paid a bit extra for faster delivery. Revan admitted. Naruto had seen her vault, and had to admit the amount of jewels meant she'd never have to worry about being poor. He picked up the new head casing. He doesn't look like much. His personality is killer. Revan said. The door chime sounded and Naruto opened it to reveal Kagan and Obi-Wan. We're a couple hours out still. Kagan said. He eyed the droid and the Jedi Master shuddered. A vicious-looking droid you have, Revan. Nah. He's harmless, unless attacked. She said, making adjustments to the limbs. What's that? Obi-Wan asked, pointing at the cylinders on the droid's forearms. Each arm has a personal shield. I had a ton of them in my vault. Revan finished up with the torso and sealed the chest up. They sat watching her make adjustments to the droid's body, which she had painted a rust orange. Looks like you'll have to finish him up later, Rev, Naruto said when the ship's intercom told them they were coming out of hyperspace. She sighed and stepped back. Naruto pulled out a scroll and after scribbling runes on it he wiped his blood on it, and with a poof, HK-47 MKII was sealed inside a simple scroll for easy travel. Obi-Wan and Kagan blinked and Revan smiled. You should see what he has in some of the other ones. Both Jedi saw the pack and Naruto smiled. What, everyone back home can do that? Revan sighed. Sadly, he's right. Can you? Kagan asked. Not as well, that's why I prefer to let him do it. Revan said. My abilities are more combat-oriented. Naruto snorted as he pulled his wife into a hug from behind her. Lazy. He whispered in her ear. Troublesome blonde. She fired back. I knew letting you play chess with Shikamaru was a bad thing. He actually was a genius. Lazy bastard. Naruto said, and Revan knew without even opening the bond her husband missed his friend. We're on approach, the captain wants us in the cockpit. Obi-Wan said, shutting off his comlink. The Namikaze nodded and followed Kagan and his Padawan from their quarters and headed to the cockpit to see where they would be meeting the Trade Federation in space above the world of Naboo. Why do I have a bad feeling about this? Naruto wondered. Chapter 12. Look at the size of that thing. Naruto said as their ship made its approach. Revan snorted. Size in this case doesn't matter, dear. She shook her head. Why is it every megalomaniac has to compensate with a giant ship and huge armies? Naruto leaned in and whispered in her ear. What did you compensate with, Haim? Revan turned and slapped him on the chest. That was Malik who wanted the army. I was considering other matters. Naruto knew better than to make a further comment. He ignored the banter between the pilot and Kagan and Obi-Wan. Bad feeling? Shesh Ben, you worry too much. He thought. We've been cleared to land. The pilot said. Great. Into the lion's den, and me without my exploding tags. Naruto thought he'd been unable to make any tags since he hadn't been able to find tags to make them with. I'll ask Rev if she knows where I can get paper to make tags from. He turned to see his wife looking at the Trade Federation control ship. Something wrong? He asked. Not sure. I don't know enough of the situation, but something feels ominous. She said, hugging her arms to her torso. There is more going on than a bunch of merchants holding a blockade of a peaceful world out here near the Outer Rim. Naruto looked at the fleet of ships. All these ships, and each loaded with what did you call them again? Oh yeah, battle droids. Kagan nodded from his place as he and Obi-Wan pulled up their hoods. Revan sighed and pulled hers up as well. Sweetie, put your robes on. She said in a sickeningly sweet voice. No thank, I'll pass. Naruto said, looking out at all the droid ships. Naruto, you will put on the robes I got for you and pull the hood up, play the role you've been given, or Kami is my witness. I will make sure Dex never makes you ramen again. Naruto's head turned so fast that Obi-Wan and Kagan were surprised his head didn't pop off with the velocity. You can't do that. The blonde said, and the Jedi heard his panic and felt it in the Force. I most certainly can. She said, tossing a set of brown Jedi robes at her husband. And don't you dare wrinkle your nose at wearing them. Obi-Wan had seen Naruto making faces behind his wife's back and jumped when she, without turning around, scolded him. Naruto grumbled as he slipped the robes on. It was Kagan who spoke next. You wear them well. Naruto grumbled. I hate robes. They're almost as bad as formal kimonos. Revan laughed, remembering the time she, Ino and Naruto went undercover in a brothel and Naruto in his sexy jutsu form. They discovered it wasn't a henge, it was an actual transformation. Pleasant memory, love? Naruto asked with a grin. Blushing, Revan scowled at him, catching her thoughts. You enjoyed that time as well as I recall. She said and looked him up and down. You look like a proper Jedi. She said with a hint of something more in her voice. Naruto smirked. Of course I do, I learned from the best. Thanks. Revan said. I was talking about Master Yoda. Naruto said and stepped out of the way from a backhand slap, but he forgot about one thing, and a force slap across the back of the head had him scowling. The small cruiser docks in the enormous bay of the Trade Federation battleship. Four cloaked figures leave the ship and are met by a silver protocol droid. Greetings. I am TC-14, this way please. The feminine-sounding droid said, and led the quartet from the docking bay, ignoring the activity going on around them. They are led down several corridors and into a formal conference room by TC-14. I hope you honored sirs are comfortable here. My master will be with you shortly. The droid bows before the four cloaked figures, then backs out of the room, the door hissing shut behind it. The four lower their hoods and look out a large window at the lush green planet of Naboo. I have a bad feeling about this. Obi-Wan says. I don't sense anything. Kagan says, looking at his Padawan. Nor I. Revan says, leaning against the wall, while looking at the planet of Naboo. Hasn't changed much from orbit. She must. You're just being overly sensitive again, Ben. Naruto said, sitting at the conference table, and put his feet up on it. Obi-Wan sighs and looks at his master. I don't think it's about this mission, Master, it's something, elsewhere, elusive. Kagan put his hands on his Padawan's shoulders. Don't center on your anxiety, Obi-Wan. Keep your concentration here and now, where it belongs. Revan smirked. I think Benny's just eager to kick but is all. Lady Revan, could you not take up your husband's bad habit of calling me by that name or making up new versions of it, please? Obi-Wan asked the other master, who shook her head and smirked. He then looked at his master. Master Yoda says I should be mindful of the future. Yes, but not at the expense of the moment. Naruto said, having gotten the same lecture earlier from the diminutive master during his lessons with him. Kagan agreed. Be mindful of the living force, my young Padawan. Yes, Master. Then, deciding to change the subject, he asked, how do you think the Trade Viceroy will deal with the demands we carry from the Chancellor? Revan snorted, getting the attention of the others. If the Trade Federation is like I think it is, made up of merchants and the like, then they are a bunch of cowards. Kagan agreed. I believe the negotiations will be short. Newt Gunray looks at his protocol droid in shock. What did you say? TC-14 repeated. I believe that the 4 ambassadors from the Supreme Chancellor are Jedi. Gunray's companion panicked. Blind me. They were sent to force a settlement. We're done for. No, we're not. Take them some refreshments. Stall them. Newt ordered his droid. They waited till the TC-14 walked away. I want a detachment sent to the corridor where the Jedi are. Pump the room full of gas, then send the droids in to finish them off. TC-14 brought them cups while they were talking. Naruto, out of habit, used his enhanced senses to try and smell a poison while he watched the Jedi use the Force. Revan sipped hers while looking at Naboo. Something wrong? Naruto asked his wife, rising to stand next to her. No, not really. It's just the last time I was here was to help Bastila bury her mother in their family's crypt. Naruto put an arm around his wife and hugged her to him. The pair heard something, and the Jedi at the table tensed. Gas. Obi-Wan stated as he and Kagan began using the Force to create a breath bubble around themselves. Revan was doing the same while Naruto pulled up his ninja mask that he designed back when he was younger to keep poisons out of his lungs. The room filled quickly. Revan reached out with the Force. Those bastards. There's a small squad of battle droids outside the door. I guess Kagan was right, these negotiations didn't last long. Naruto shot back through the bond while Revan and the Jedi pulled their lightsabers. Naruto sighed and summoned his from the seal as well. And you say I always go looking for trouble, Naruto sent to his wife, who rolled her eyes as they continued to use the Force to keep the poison out of their lungs. A hologram of Newt surrounded by battle droids appears in the conference room hallway. They must be dead by now. Blast whatever is left of them. The hologram fades off as the battle droid opens the door. A deadly green cloud billows from the room. The gathered battle droids cock their weapons as a figure stumble out of the smoke. It is TC-14 carrying the empty tray. Oh, excuse me, I'm so sorry. The protocol droid passes the armed droids just as 5 laser swords spring to life in the deadly fog. A green and blue one fly out of the poison-filled conference room, cutting down several of the battle droids before they can even open fire. Alarm klaxons sound on the bridge of the Trade Federation ship. What the devil? Oh, this is bad. His companion whines. We've lost the droids we sent to deal with the Jedi. What in blazes is going on down there? Newt fumes. Had you ever encountered a Jedi Knight before, sir? His companion asks. Well, not exactly. But I don't. A panicked look fills the alien's face. Seal off the bridge. He barks the order. That won't be enough, sir. His fellow Neimoidian says, both looking on as the doors to the bridge slam shut. I want destroyer droids up here at once. Newt orders while his companion is whining, we will not survive this. Kagan cuts down a couple of battle droids, creating a shower of sparks and metal parts. Obi-Wan raises his hand and sends several battle droids crashing into the wall hard with a force push. They both turn to see Naruto and Revan finishing the rest off, both Jedi impressed as the pair looked like they were dancing around one another, their movements in perfect sync with the other. Kagan nods at them, and makes his way towards the bridge door and slams his lightsaber into it to begin cutting his way in. The bridge crew is looking very nervous as sparks start flying around the bridge door. One of them brings up the image from a camera in the corridor showing the 4 Jedi on the view screen. Close the blast doors. Newt yells out frantically. A huge, very thick blast door slams shut, followed by a second door, then a third. There is a loud hissing sound as the doors seal shut. On the screen, Kagan stabs the door again with his lightsaber, and is joined by Naruto. The screen goes black as a red spot appears in the center of the blast door. They're still coming through. Newt's companion moans, as they watch the door as chunks of molten metal begin to drop away. Impossible. Newt yells out. This is impossible. Where are those destroyer droids? His companion yells to one of the techs. Out in the corridor with Revan and Obi-Wan standing guard, Naruto and Kagan are making progress with the door when they hear it. 10 ugly wheel-like droids roll down the hallway at full speed. Just before they get to the bridge area, they stop and transform into their battle configuration. Kagan can't sense their presence, but hears Obi-Wan's shout of warning causes him to stop and turn from his task with Naruto. Destroyer droids. Offhand, I'd say this mission is way past the negotiation stage. Revan says, taking up a stance as the destroyer droids rush the entry area from the 3 connecting hallways, their laser guns blasting. They stop firing and stand in a semicircle as the smoke clears. The 4 Jedi are nowhere to be seen. Switch to bio, there they are. The lead droid orders and they see the 4 Jedi materialize at the far end of the hallway and dash through the doorway that slams shut. The droids open fire, and the Jedi deflecting with their lightsabers send several blasts back at the droids. They have shield generators. Obi-Wan said in surprise, which Revan snorts at as she uses her 2 blades to smack aside incoming laser bolts. It's a standoff. Let's go. Kagan says. And the 4 dash down another adjacent corridor, avoiding blaster fire before Kagan stops, deflect a blaster bolt into a ventilation cover and dives in while Revan stands guard before she enters last. 20 minutes later the 4 emerge from a very large ventilation shaft in the giant hangar bay. They pause seeing the burnt-out remains of the cruiser they'd come on. They watch from a catwalk as thousands of battle droids are being loaded onto numerous landing craft. Battle droids, thousands of them. Kagan says. It's an invasion army. Naruto hisses. Would you say this is an odd play for the Trade Federation? Revan asks. We've got to warn the Naboo. And get in contact with Chancellor Valorum. Kagan says. Let's split up. Each of us stow aboard a separate ship and meet down on the planet. The others agree. Naruto has to hold in his laugh when he hears Obi-Wan's comment. You were right about one thing, Master. The negotiations were short. 6 landing craft fly towards the surface of the planet of Naboo. On board one, a very bored Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze wasted no time in messing around. Soon the ship was filled with sparks and all the battle droids' heads popped off. I'm so not paying for this. He muttered, wondering how Revan was faring. You broke them, came the amused voice of his wife. Yeah, not my fault. Nothing is marked properly. Naruto ignored his wife's amusement. Yes, well, you did good. One less group to deal with on the surface. I'll do the same, good work, love. Naruto sighed as he leaned against the wall. He picked up a droid head. You know, Bob, for something that's designed for war, you all sure break easy. He tossed the droid head over his shoulder and decided to look around now that he messed up. He smiled seeing vehicles. Wonder if I can drive this thing. He pondered. Nah, Rev would skin me. Last time I flew her speeder ended up part of the landscape. Naruto thought of the time back outside of Konoha, when Revan taught him to pilot her speeder. With that in mind, Naruto sat and started messing around with one of the now broken droids. I wonder if this feeling is the same Rev gets when she's working on one of her projects. This is actually fun. He thought as he began to rebuild a droid, his hands unconsciously rewiring and removing parts while adding others, his eyes taking on a glazed look. That's it for this reading. Hit like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfictions. Looking forward to having you on board again.